Hello again. Thank you all for joining the Integrated Control of Thrips webinar. We had such a very active Q&A and wanted to follow up with an additional video answering some of your questions. If you find this information helpful, we encourage you to check out our future webinars and view past recordings at endowment.org/growpro. AFE has also more information on thrips in their online Thrips and Botrytis research library, which can be found at endowment.org/TB. So here are some of the questions that were not answered in our Q&A due to a lack of time. So we're just going to follow up on those. The next question was, what would be the best method for IPM of plugs? So here I'm assuming that you mean rooted cuttings with plugs. When all the cuttings are still really close together in their rooting trace, I think this is the perfect situation for broadcast of predatory mites and also to apply nematodes or biopesticides to the substrate. The benefit is that all the plants are really close together and that you will be able to hit all the substrate and the plants without losing any in between, kind of like the pots as you have when the crop is spaced. Next question is, can you tank mix Botanicard and nematodes as a drench to ensure onion thrips efficacy? So I looked this one up real quick, and yes, you can apply nematodes and Botanicard as a tank mix. However, it's very important that you apply the mix right away. Don't wait, because the longer they sit in a solution together, there will be some negative effects of one product on the other. Also remember to agitate the solution to keep everything in suspension. So as long as you apply it right away and agitate, there should be no problem. Next question is, when scouting for Parvus spinus, how many plant washes should you do per 1,000 square feet? Can plant washes help with determining action thresholds? Also, can we even reasonably have action thresholds with a quarantinable pest? All right, so the thing to know about plant washes is that they are destructive. So you have to cut off a piece of the plant or even the whole plant and wash them to know how many thrips are on them. So as a regular monitoring method, it's not very recommended. However, if you want to take a little snip here and there, then it will be very helpful, and you can take the thrips right out of the solution to identify them. So about action thresholds, yes, if you are in a zone, in an area where Thrips parvus spinus is a quarantinable pest, the action threshold is basically any Thrips is one too many. So unfortunately, action thresholds won't work that way. In other parts, like in Canada, for example, it's not a quarantinable pest, so here we can actually work with action thresholds. The next question is, do you have any information or any research about thrips having an influx on inner fruit rot by releasing fungus spores into the flowers of peppers? That's a very interesting question. I guess it is possible. But I don't know of anyone who has looked at it. So thank you for the suggestion. I'll definitely further look into it, because yes, the inner root in peppers is inner rot of peppers is definitely a big problem. The follow-up question was, how is the irrigation strategy causing inner fruit rot in bell pepper by having plant water stress and not having a good temperature evenness throughout the plant? And that, unfortunately, I don't know. You may want to ask a plant pathologist if you know any. The next question is there any research using UVC lights for thrips control? Yes, there definitely is. you should check out the AFE website for any information from Dr. Bruce Parker of the University of Vermont. They have tested different doses of UVC light, and it can definitely kill thrips. The next question is, will adding sugar to WFT, Western Flower Thrips sprays, aid for thrips consumption in control, like Sabadilla sprays? I know some people add sugar and to the spray, and they say that it makes the several different insects that like to feed on carbohydrates like sugar um, intake more of the pesticide. Again, I have no personal experience with this, so my answer is probably like a maybe. The next question is, what are your thoughts on Velifer compared to Botanicart WP? That's a good question. I have only used Velifer in one experiment, so we don't have a lot of experience with it. So I can't really help you there. I'm sorry. The next question is it worthwhile to spray Botanicart at night rather than the daytime to extend the life of Botanicart? Are the thrips active at night? So this is a consideration where you may want to spray Botanicart later in the day to prevent the UV in the daylight to harm the Botanicart spores. I think it may be worth it if you're counting on the thrips being hit directly with the spray. I know thrips are less active at night, so I'm not 100% sure about that one. Most people I know actually apply Botanicart during the day, and it still seems to work pretty well. You may want to avoid applying it like at noon when the sun is at the highest, though. Next question is, what is the ideal length of time to leave sticky traps out before replacing them? So that depends if you want to use them for mask trapping, then as long as they're still sticky, you can leave them out and they will work fine. Of course, if you want to use them for monitoring, you will want to monitor them regularly because you want to know what's happening in the greenhouse, right? So then you definitely want to collect them on a weekly basis. The next question is, how do you actually convince growers that dips should be done? Good question. We have done a lot of presentations and outreach where we show that dips really make a difference, also followed up by an IPM program. And as a result, in surveys, we've seen that about 70% of Ontario growers dip their cuttings for example, poinsettias or chrysanthemums. So I guess showing that it works is the best strategy to convince growers. The next question is, I'm curious to know more about implementing an in-house breeding program for certain biocontrols, for example, Delosia coriaria, Chrysoperla, and having bioreactors, etc. So I could do a whole presentation about this. The short answer is it definitely can be done. I think it's worth maybe doing it for the much bigger greenhouses where you can dedicate an employee to doing all this. An intermediate solution is to use a lot of banker plants as well that are their own kind of like breeding factories. So yeah, it definitely can be done. There are some protocols out there as well that are freely available. So let me know if you want any information on that. The next question is, what about metabolomic or microbiome to control thrips and mites, and how can this be applied at IPM? So induced plant resistance, which is like having certain microbes in the soil or applied to the foliage actually activate the plant's immune response, is not very well studied for thrips or for mites. There are certain products that do change um, the defenses in the plant, which can be measured by metabolomics. However, it depends a lot on variety, even not only plant species, but variety, and on product, and on a whole bunch of other environmental factors and things. So I think it is still in its infancy, this research. And the last question is how to start clean and stay clean when you are never empty. And this is a situation that I imagine happens a lot. So think about how your greenhouse is laid out. If you can start clean in different compartments, have like the clean crops and the infested crops in different compartments, that would be ideal. Some people even put up like a sheet in between old and new crops to prevent thrips from flying to the clean crop. You can put up lots of mass trapping as well to trap in between the old and the new crops. I think the key is really to implement a really good IPM program so that your crop will be relatively clean. And if you front load, so concentrate the IPM program on the beginning of the crop, it will really help to clean up the crop. And then every time you get in new plant material, make sure it's clean so that you don't bring in new pests in the greenhouse. So thank you very much for all the questions. It's been a pleasure to present and answer questions, and hopefully you will be able to use any of these in your practice.